My name is Jeanette Key, and I grew up around in edge of Shelby County and Tipton County, and I've lived here most of my life. And I was, whenever before, just right, a little while, a few years before all of the civil rights and everything started. I lived in the rural area of Shelby County and went to Bolton High School, and my family did. And we lived on two white families that lived on a road there, and everybody else was a black family. Basically, some of them were farmers, some of them were school teachers, and some of them were sharecroppers and things like that. We lived on one end of Mulberry Road, and the other white family lived across the road. But it was during that time, it was a very good time, I think, in the 50s and early 60s, and everybody got along. Neighbors helped everybody, but nobody bothered anybody. And our next door neighbors to the right of us, they were black, but we helped one another. We did not. The thing we didn't do, we didn't. How would you say it? We didn't fellowship with one another or anything like that. You know what I mean is we didn't go and sit down at their house and have food with them, or they didn't come to our house. But if we needed help, they were right there to help us. My mother got sick. The lady, Miss Johnson, she lived next door. She came and she washed and things like that. When she needed help, my mother was there, or some of us kids would go up there and help them do whatever needed to be done. Didn't think anything about it. That's just one helping the other. But that's, as far as friendship like that, that's how it went. But we didn't do family things together, or well, back then we didn't have cookouts. Everybody was too poor to have cookouts, and we had ice cream suppers. But everybody kind of stuck to their own families or whatever. But what I'm saying is everybody was kind to one another and liked one another, and knew one another. We knew their names. And the children, we always waved, we spoke, and all like that. We lived and during that time, everybody, it was, even though you intermingled like that, everybody, they had their stores, we had ours. They had their waiting rooms at the doctor's office. The white had their waiting rooms, and I never really thought anything about it. But we used the same doctors and the same nurses and things like that. To me, it was calmer then than what is portrayed now. But as now, I remember when the civil rights thing started, and it was very, all I can say is, from my perspective, I didn't understand it, because I was thinking, everything they're marching for, they already have. And instead of, and they call it peaceful marches, but it really wasn't all of them peaceful. Now, Dr. Martin Luther King did not go out there and throw rocks through windows and turn cars and do things like that. But those that followed him and those that's in the crowd, they did. It was so bad that honestly I quit watching the world news because I couldn't take it. It was just that bad. And it's kind of similar. It's not. I don't think it's as bad as it was now with things that are going on now in the streets and all. But the thing I want to say is, I understand now that the door had been open, but it probably never had been pushed open enough for them, for the blacks to have what it was that they were asking for. And I really didn't realize it because, see, I didn't live in their shoes and they didn't live in mine. I come from a poor family, and so we worked just like they did. My parents, when they grew up, they were sharecroppers. Their parents were sharecroppers, and they worked just like what the blacks say they did. Everybody picked cotton, and it wasn't any difference between the black and the whites. I'm gonna tell you, the poor people just wasn't any difference at all. And I know that's not what's portrayed today, but that's exactly the way it was. All right. And then I will say this, that whenever they started, I really didn't realize what it was. I do now. I have a better understanding. And I agree that they did deserve things that they didn't have at the time. Although the door was open, it would just never had been pushed open enough for them to know how to go through. But I remember the day that Martin Luther King got shot. And I remember that before he was supposed to have a march about a week or so earlier, and there's a big snowstorm come through. I think we had 17 inches of snow on the ground, and so they weren't able to do the march. But then they came back in April, and they went ahead and they did it. Whenever the sanitation workers and on strike and are helping out with the strike, or however it goes with that. But I remember the day that he was shot. We had bought a new refrigerator. I was married at the time then. I mean, we were, and we still lived at the same place where I was talking about grew up, because we lived in a mobile home next door to my parents. And I remember it was 2 black men that came and delivered the refrigerator. And I was really kind of fearful because, of all the chaos and all the news, and one thing I've learned too, news don't report the news the way it really is. They put a twist and a slant on everything the way they want you to perceive it. So I didn't know. Now, they were nice, they were polite, they came in, they did what they wanted to, but I didn't know if they might retaliate because I was white.